Hello, everybody. Welcome back here to another episode of the BSN Network podcast. Today is Tuesday, June 28th. Hopefully, everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Tuesday, June 28th here today, coming off another big night last night in the world of sports. You had a lot of great games on last night in baseball. Wasn't an incredibly, there was a couple really good games. But I wouldn't say it was an incredibly, you had the Nationals comeback, Yankees had a big comeback, but it wasn't like every team played last night. You know how Mondays are, a little bit of a slower moving night. Yankees were the only team in New York to play yesterday. And as a baseball fan, now is kind of the time for baseball to kind of take over, because it's funny, like now, for the next 2 months, baseball is the only U.S. major sport that will be playing. Hockey's over with, basketball's over with, and we all know football, doesn't start till September. So, it's obviously a great time now for baseball where everybody can gather around, watch some games, and really, really enjoy a lot of these games, because a lot of these games have been great. And yesterday, again, the New York Yankees continue to show how resilient they are. They continue to show all the ways they can beat you. They continue to show that even when they're down 5-1 on a Monday night in June, there's a lot of times against the Oakland A's on a Monday night in June, I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of teams would just say, you know what, throw this one away, forget about it, move on to Tuesday. Yankees don't do that. They never will. They never have. And they won. Come back from down 5-1, score 8 straight runs. Because they scored. Rizzo had a solo shot in the bottom of the first, and after that, then the A's put up 5 runs, and then the Yankees had a big 6-run bottom of the 8th coming alive, or bottom of the 7th, I should say, and really tearing it up. So a big win last night for the Yankees. As I said, there should be a series sweep here. I would tend to say, despite us going up against probably the A's best pitching and their strength of their team is their pitching, there should be no issue sweeping the A's. Now, their bullpen's very bad. The A's' bullpen's very bad, and I gotta admit, when I did the scorebook and all, I don't have to tell you. And when I was getting the book ready, I was writing down names. I was writing down the bullpen for the A's, and I cannot even tell you some of the guys' names. There is some guys on that team that I've never even heard of. And that's rare for me, because I'm not saying I'm a, I don't know every player on every single team, every single roster, but I usually know the majority of teams' bullpens. I usually know. Sometimes I play games myself when I'm filling it out. I try to get as many names as I can into my book. Maybe like 3 or 4 names I'll know just off the top of my head from other teams' bullpen, especially if it's in the division, because we play them a lot. Like if it's a Rays or the Orioles or the Red Sox or somebody like that, if we play them a lot and I'm used to writing down the names a lot, or if it's like the final game in like a 4-game set, I'm used to it, then I got to look. But the A's yesterday, I could not. The only guy I knew was Trevino. Luz Trevino was the only guy I wrote down, and I was like, all right, that's one of the guys I know for a fact. But other than that, the bullpen, and they walk so many guys. It's so bad. I mean, the A's are just, and you had the new CBA and all that stuff to try to limit tanking, and the A's just are tanking. I mean, that's really what they're doing. Worst record in baseball. They're now 25-50, so they're 25 games below 500. And the Yankees continue to win with another win last night. And, so a good win last night for the New York Yankees. Like I said, against the A's, I got a little worried there because they were down 5-1. It's like, you could very well see a game 5-1, on a Monday night in the middle of June. Sometimes you might just kind of lose it a little bit, but the Yankees, no, they never do that. Always make the game exciting, and with another comeback win. So let's get the topics for today's podcast. I'm a pretty happy sailor today because Kyrie Irving opts into his contract. Yes, you have heard that right. Through all the rumors, through all of the what ifs, the this, that, Lakers, this, Knicks, whatever, all of that. The Kyrie Irving saga, I guess, kind of comes to an end for the time being. I guess we'll see what the Nets decide to do, if there is a trade or what all happens. But for the time being, Kyrie Irving opts into his contract, and he is going to be with the Brooklyn Nets again next season. This is great news for Nets fans, and I'll tell you why it is coming up here on the first topic. I also want to get to Francisco Alvarez, because this has kind of been a little bit of a trending story around baseball. Francisco Alvarez, one of the Mets' top prospects, coming out of the Double-A team with the Rumbling Ponies, I believe their name is, drawing a little bit of fire behind possibly making an MLB debut this year. Now, he's not expected to make a debut until next season, so I would not expect him to come up this year. But when Scherzer made a rehab start on, well, as we all know, last week, and he'll make another one tonight, he really liked throwing to Francisco Alvarez, and he kind of saw the talent, he saw the potential of the guy, and now there's been some rumors with the possibility of maybe him getting called up, fans kind of wanting him to get called up as that possible maybe another bat in their lineup, because he is absolutely raking at the minor league level, and without a doubt, ready not only just for a promotion, but might be big league ready. So I want to get into that. And do the Mets go that route of bringing him up instead of going out and maybe spending assets to go out and get another guy? Do they bring in a homegrown talent possibly? Because the catcher position for the Mets too kind of needs it. We'll also get to the New York sports update as always to finish things off. We got the Yankees today, Game 2 of a 3-game set against the A's, and the Mets will be open up a quick 2-game set at Citi Field against the Astros starting today and then into tomorrow. And then the Astros will finally just say, look, we are done with New York. We are out of here. Not just yet, though. Then they'll go to Houston to play the Yankees for one more. So this stretch of New York baseball, Astro fans are going to become sick of it. But at the rate we're going, there's a good chance the Yankees and the Astros meet in the ALCS if that does happen. So Astro fans are going to get a lot of New York baseball over the course of this season and even into the playoffs and all that stuff is what we all expect. I know it's only June. We're already talking about the postseason. I don't want to do that, but I'm just kind of just saying it because there's been a lot. And it's funny because this season you've kind of seen those weird schedule, things in the schedule. And it could also probably be because of lockdown and it adjusted a little bit, but I even remember the Yankees stretch. They played the White Sox for 3, then they had the Orioles, then the White Sox, then the Orioles. And it was just those teams for like a stretch of like 12, 15 games. And it was so, towards the end of it, got so annoying because it was just like you were watching the same team every single day. You were just tired of it. So Astro fans, I'm sure, are tired of it, but they only got 2 more here. 3 more, actually. 2 more in New York, 1 more back at Houston when they welcome the Yankees on Thursday. But anyway, with all that being said, a lot to get to today on the podcast. This is the BSN podcast, and let's get into it. So, Kyrie Irving exercises $36.5 million Nets contract option amid Lakers sign-and-trade rumors. Yes, you have heard that right. That is not a false report. Through all the rumors, all of the, news reports, all the articles, the interview that Kyrie had on the red carpet the other day. I don't know why he was on a red carpet for some show or whatever. I don't know what it was, but he was on there, and they asked him, is he going to stay with the Nets, or what is he going to do? Does he want to get traded to Lakers? He basically said, pass it to my left. He said he doesn't want to talk about it, and through all of that, Kyrie Irving is going to stay with the Nets. So, first of all, you really got to wonder, before you really get to the basketball point of this, was any of these rumors even true? Now, the top basketball reporters were reporting this. Woj was on it. Shams was on it. Those are the top 2 guys that I think, they're like the Ian Rappaport and the Adam Schefter of the NFL, right? Those are the top 2 insiders in the in the NBA. MLB, you got like a Jeff Passan and somebody else. Jeff Passan. I don't really, maybe Ken Rosenthal. I know he got the Fox, or MLB got rid of him because of some of his lockout stuff. MLB's got a scattered couple guys here and there in terms of insiders that they, that they get a lot of report. Jeff Passan's definitely, I would say, with ESPN, the most trustable. And then you go to hockey, Dan Rosen's pretty trustable. I know Vince Z. Mercogliano for the Rangers is pretty trustable. So there's a lot of guys there too. But you really wonder where, with sports sometimes, how many of these reports with Kyrie Irving were even true? How many of these reports were just maybe either a misconception of what Kyrie was thinking or what he was saying or what he was doing or what he was planning on doing? Was Kyrie going to opt out of his deal, not to go to the Lakers, but maybe to try to get a new contract from the Nets? Like, you really got to wonder what all was going on. Because obviously, all the reports of him being done with the Nets, all the reports of, him wanting to go to the Lakers, him actually there was some reports too. I saw some crazy reports that he was actively talking to LeBron, telling him, look, try to get the front office to get me. Like, there was some wild reports. And that's all basically false. Somebody got the report, and it's not true. And now we stand here today, and Kyrie opts in. And I'll tell you what, I'm very surprised by this. Now, I will tell you this. And Evan Roberts tweeted this yesterday, who does a great job at WFAN. He's on from 2 to 6:37ish up until the Yankees pregame show on WFAN. Does a great job. Love watching their show. 46 as well on SNY. He tweeted yesterday, logic says that Kyrie would come back to the Nets. But, kind of the way things were going with the reporting, it would be like Kyrie's going elsewhere. So, logically, what Kyrie probably would do, go back to the Nets. But, to go team back up with, Kevin Durant, now you're out, without James Harden. And, there was also some rumors, too, that Kyrie Irving and James Harden had some beef. So now for Kyrie to maybe go a full season without James Harden, with just him and KD, and then, whatever Ben Simmons decides to do, he was all in on that. That's what we all kind of expected. But this reporting, these news, these headlines, kind of just took a strong right-hand turn the other way, and things just went off the rails. Of reporting in the late, and once the Lakers were get involved, and once LeBron get involved, there's no getting out of it, because there's going to reports flying everywhere. LeBron's doing this, LeBron's doing that, Kyrie's visiting LeBron, Kyrie's talking to LeBron, Russell Westbrook's coming to the Nets, and sure, there could still be stuff that changes, right? Who knows? I mean, maybe Kyrie opts into his deal, then asks for a trade. Who knows? But still, when logic also tells us why Kyrie would opt in, because Kyrie can play for the Nets this season, $36.5 million. Because of the Lakers, they are in cap space major issues. Because of that, he would only get $6 million if he would to go to the Lakers. Now, if they would include a sign and trade where he can get Westbrook involved, I'm sure maybe he could get a little bit more, but he would get $6 million if he would go to the Lakers. That's a big decrease. That's $30 million less. Are you really going to go out and get $30 million less in money just to go play with Anthony Davis, LeBron James on a team last year that didn't even make the playoffs? Are you really going to do that? So that's where I think ultimately would have came down to the Kyrie Irving. Sure, maybe if this season doesn't go as planned, maybe does he go elsewhere? Possibly. I'm not saying that this is automatically got Kyrie Irving locked in for a long time, but logic told us, and I think all the signs are pointing towards, look, if you really put thought into this, why would Kyrie Irving go to the Lakers for $6 million when he could team up with Kevin Durant without James Harden back in Brooklyn, which is the plan all along for $36.5 million? And you're also going to be on a team that made the postseason last year. Sure, they got swept, but the Lakers didn't even make the postseason last season, and they are in a big cap space issue, and who knows what's going to happen with Russell Westbrook and the rest of that roster. That's absolutely terrible. They are in a big problem in Los Angeles with the Lakers, and I don't think anybody can disagree with that. You want to disagree with it? Back it up. Give me the numbers. They were awful last season. So this is a smart move by Kyrie. Teaming back up with Kevin Durant, back in Brooklyn, and through all the feud and rumors that we heard with him and James Harden, he now gets a full season without James Harden. He gets a full season with just him and Kevin Durant. And the reason I'm just saying him and Kevin Durant, I can't sit here right now and tell you that Ben Simmons is playing. I have no clue what Ben Simmons is going to do. I don't really know. That guy's all over. Who knows what that guy's going to do? I don't know if he's going to play. I don't even know if he wants to play. I don't know if the Nets are going to get rid of him. I don't know what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. For sure, though, we know if everything goes as planned, and this is the final kind of end to the Kyrie saga that has gone on the past week or two here, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant will both be Brooklyn Nets, and that's big for this franchise because they could not afford losing both Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. You have to realize what both those players bring to the table. I think a lot of people get caught up in the narrative that, Kyrie, sure, he's had some, he said some things over the years to organizations saying, I'm staying here. Boston didn't end well and all that stuff. And I know Boston's had success without him. I get all that. But you cannot deny Kyrie's talent and ability when he's out there. Same thing with Kevin Durant. I know a lot of people say, he's dumb for leaving Golden State. I'm not disagreeing with that, but you cannot deny that his talent and ability is the best basketball player on this planet when he's on his game, when he's healthy. And if the Brooklyn Nets would have lost Kyrie Irving, he didn't opt into his deal, let's say they got rid of him, there's a good chance Kevin Durant was right behind him. And if that's the case, well, then you look at it as a Brooklyn Net fan, you don't have a draft pick for the next 5 years because you gave them all away in that terrible James Harden deal. And you would be looking at a long, long rebuild just like you were in when you traded for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and that blew up right in your face. And I still stand to this day. I don't think any of this would have took place. I think the Nets, personally, in my opinion, and call me crazy, I would probably go, I'm gonna say this, and I feel strongly about this. And if you disagree. You want to come at me in the comments and disagree, do that. I'd love to have a conversation. But I would personally go ahead and say that if the Nets never made the trade for James Harden, they would have won an NBA Finals already. Because they would have still had Jarrett Allen. They would have still had Karis LeVert. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They would, you wouldn't really have. They were heavy. They would have a better supporting cast. I mean, this year in the postseason, they had nobody. I mean, they had, I know Joe Harris was hurt and stuff, but they really didn't have anybody. I mean, Seth Curry's good, but he's not. They weren't physical enough. The Celtics were just a better team. They were outmanned. That's really what happened. They were getting manhandled. Kevin Durant was getting manhandled because outside of him and Kyrie Irving, there was no guy on the court that can consistently put up numbers. Jarrett Allen could. Karis LeVert could. So I still stand by that. If the Nets never made a trade for James Harden, they would have won an NBA championship already. So now as a Net fan, now as an organization, Nets got to look at it this way. Look, make sure Kyrie is all in. Right? You want to make sure that first. And then you got to figure out a way to try to build up this roster like you kind of did when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant came in. Some young talent, some guys that can do serious damage. I'm not talking about Patty Mills. I'm not talking about, some of these other guys. I'm talking about guys that can seriously put up consistent points. That's what I'm talking about. Not, one of these old veteran guys that, is good for maybe a couple three-pointers here and there. No, I want a couple guys that are going to come in, be very good role players, can come off the bench, score points, play defense, physicality. That's what's going to win you championships, right? And that's what you saw in Golden State. Jordan Poole stepping up, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, all those guys, the supporting cast of Steph Curry, all those pieces played a big role in that NBA championship. And to all those Net fans out there that didn't want Kyrie Irving, you would be the same ones complaining of how bad we are if we got rid of him, KD went behind him. So I don't even want to hear those people complaining, Kyrie stinks. No. Because look, if Kyrie would to leave and Kevin Durant would to leave, this organization, I'm telling you right now, we would have to go through the pain that we went through with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And I felt that pain. Those seasons of being the 11th and 12th seed in the Eastern Conference. Those seasons of Alan Crabb and Rodion's Kurucs and, good God, name many of them. Spencer Dinwiddie, which was pretty good, but when he was kind of our number one guy. Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Booker, or whatever that guy's, Javon Booker, whatever that guy's name was. Then we had Javon Carter, which was more recent. But, just go down the list of names that Jeremy Lin, oh, God. Go down the list. It's bad. It's not a good list. And you got to feel very good today about Kyrie Irving coming back. Because if the Nets could not possibly afford to lose Kyrie Irving. So, got to be happy today if you're a Net fan. Have to be. And if you're not, well, go to another team. Because if you're not happy to be, if you're mad that Kyrie's coming back, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I understand. I get all of his faults. I get, he's not always out there consistently. I understand all that. His injury history. I get that. But you got to realize what is lying on this organization in terms of what they put into these two star players. They put in a lot for these two guys to win a championship. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving would to leave right now, which almost happened if Kyrie doesn't opt in, because I'm not saying that Kevin Durant would have left, and I don't know how true all the rumors were. I'm sure you'd hear Durant, KD talk and stuff, down the road here. But I mean, my oh my, if any of these guys would have left, the Nets would have been in a major problems. So, if you're a Net fan that wants to see another rebuild, good. Go root for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to leave. If you're a Net fan that wants to see winning and knows that once them two leave, you're in a bad spot, then you should be happy Kyrie's back. And that's where I stand. I'm pumped up that Kyrie's back. And look, like I said, who knows? I can't predict Kyrie. I mean, I know what he's done down the road. I know he's a weird guy. I know he says a lot of things and he's an interesting dude. He's always been that way. He's a very odd guy. He thought the earth was flat. What else can I say? But we cannot doubt his ability when he's out there on the basketball court. Nobody can. And if you are, then that's just ridiculous because you're not going to. No, you're not. It's not a valid argument. If you say that Kyrie's not good or Kyrie's overrated, that's not a valid argument. Look at his numbers up there against some of the best in the league. That's not a valid argument. So, Kyrie Irving exercises $36.5 million Nets contract option amid Lakers sign and trade rumors. And like I said, I kind of just said this now, but I just want to re-clarify. Does this mean that the Nets aren't going to... I don't see the Nets trading him. I really don't. Especially if he just opts in and the Nets don't have to go all out. But I think all along we knew that Kyrie, some way, it was going to be... The Nets were kind of... If Kyrie would have opted out of his deal and would have become a free agent, I think there would have been eventually a point where the Nets, Sean Marks, Joe Tsai, who knows nothing about basketball, has done a terrible job with this organization. But probably would come to a point where, you would come to a point where they would have to give in anyway. So, either way, opts in. Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving has exercised his $36.5 million player option for 2022-2023 per Shams of The Athletic and Stadium. Shams noted that the point guard is bypassing on multiple opt-in and trade scenarios to fulfill his 4-year commitment to the Nets and Kevin Durant. And the 7-time All-Star said, "Normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. I've made my decision to opt in. See you in the fall." He said, optimism reigned after Irving and Kevin Durant joined forces on the Nets in the summer of 2019. However, that union has led to just one playoff series win in 3 seasons. Durant was out of the 2019-2020 season with a ruptured Achilles suffered during the 2019 NBA Finals. Finals as a member of the Golden State Warriors, while injuries held Irving to just 20 games that year, but the Nets still made the playoffs anyway. That was the weird bubble season. It was just bad. The 2020-2021 season brought more hope, and the addition of James Harden via trade in January sprung championship dreams. However, a variety of reasons, namely more injuries, made it so the 3 superstars were rarely on the court at the same time. The Nets fell to the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round that season. The 2021-2022 season brought more drama. Irving's Nets future was in serious question after he started the 2021-2022 season on the sideline because of his refusal to get vaccinated against COVID-19, thereby preventing him from playing any home games in New York's Barclays Center because of the city's vaccine mandates. The Nets decided to bar him from practices and games entirely until he was eligible to become a full participant. However, the Nets eventually decided to change course, allowed Irving to return on a part-time basis as Brooklyn became shorthanded because of injuries and the league's health and safety protocols. His first game back was on January 5th against the Pacers, and the mandates were lifted in April, allowing him to play in all games. By then, though, it was too late. Harden requested a trade after trade and was already out of town in February. After landing in Philadelphia, Ben Simmons was acquired from the 76ers for Harden, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond. But he never suited up because of a herniated disc in his back. This is kind of the story of just how the Nets have gone. Nets made the playoffs, got swept. Durant will presumably be around for a while after inking a 4-year, $198 million extension that will keep him with the team through the 2025-2026 season. The same goes for Simmons, thanks to his 5-year, $177.2 million contract that runs through the 2024-25 season. But Irving was a question mark. A source told Christian Winfield of the New York Daily News on May 24th that the Nets had no intentions on inking Irving to a long-term contract. He also reported that Nets and KD had no talks after the season ended. Things appeared to change on June 7th. All indications strongly pointed towards a reunion between Brooklyn and its all-star point guard. Pendulum swing, all these reporting. Woj reported Monday the Lakers were the only team interested in potential sign and trade for the guard. But Irving's future is now murkier. He'll be a free agent in 2023 bearing an extension, so it's unclear whether KD-Kyrie experiment could be nearing its end. Like I said, you never know, but he's opting in. So he's opting in this year. So there's a good chance for the Brooklyn Nets that it's kind of now or never. Because if they don't win a championship this year, there's a good chance that this could get broken up, and you talk about another 5-6 year rebuild where it seems as if every year there's no progress because you have no draft picks to bring in young talent. So, Nets are in an interesting spot. They are, without a doubt. But now with Kyrie opting in, Kevin Durant as well, fully in on this. You got to put all your chips in if you're the Nets, because I have not really said this much this year. Or not this year, but during this run where it's like, this year's a must-win. This year's a must-win. Now, my first season, I did say, you should win. That did not happen. Last year, I kind of said it too, where, not really a must, but a year where if you don't win at all, there's going to be questions. And I think we all agree there was questions going into this offseason. Not really just about Kyrie and Kevin Durant, but more so about just the roster as a whole. Who else are you bringing in, all that stuff? So now I would go ahead and say that if the Nets don't win a championship year, with Kyrie definitely becoming a free agent next season, because he would have no opt-in or opt-out, there's a good chance this could be kind of you got to do it. So the Nets got to kind of put all their chips in. Bring in as much talent as they can. Call up Ben Simmons and make sure that he's actually going to show up and play. Not show up and wear a goofy orange and purple outfit on the sideline and look like a clown. Right? Let's see if he actually plays. But yeah, this is a big development for the Nets. So it's very good news for the Nets. It is. But definitely now the Nets got to put all their chips in and win a championship, because now time's beginning to run out a little bit. So good news. But, we got to see Nets go all out, build up this roster even better than it was last season. Re-sign Bruce Brown, because I think that's a big key piece for them too. So, a lot of things going on here with the Brooklyn Nets. NBA is just like that. There's a lot more saga. And I would tell you this. Out of all the leagues, NBA's got the most drama, but sometimes the littlest action. Like, you hear all these rumors, even at the trade deadline. This guy's going, this guy's getting traded. It never happens. So last season, Kyrie, just to give you some of his numbers, 27.4 points per game. That was fourth in the NBA. 4.4 rebounds. That was tied for 23rd. And he was tied for fourth in the league in 5.8 assists. So if you want to sit here and say that, he's not good enough, or, he's not a good enough player, then, that's a losing argument, because the stats just don't back it up. So Kyrie Irving's back, opts in, and now we can kind of move on with the offseason, with him kind of being balled in now with the Nets. All right, so now let's get to another topic, shifting from a little bit of basketball to baseball. And I want to get to Francisco Alvarez, because for the New York Mets right now, although there is obviously a lot of success going on, I think a lot of people agree that the New York Mets need to make some moves at the deadline. And I think a lot of people would agree. Yankees, I think the Yankees are in an interesting spot, because I would say that the Yankees are not so much moves at the deadline, but the Yankees are, in a spot where, maybe they can make another bullpen move depending on how the pieces come back. I would love to bring in an outfielder that is better than Gallo, but I think a lot of Met fans would agree that they need to bring in another big bat. There's definitely things that the Mets need to do. Mets right now stand at 47-27. They are 5 games up in the NL East, 24-10 at home, 23-17 on the road, a run differential of plus 67, and they're 6-4 in their last 10. So not a very, very hot team right now, but they got the Houston series and another opportunity for the Mets to kind of, going up against a good Astros team, an opportunity for them to show themselves a little bit, prove that they can beat some of the best, and we'll see what they can do. That series, that 2-game set starts today into tomorrow. But like I mentioned, there's definitely things that the Mets need to do at the deadline. I think a lot of Met fans would agree they need to bring in another big bat. There's been, earlier in the year, there was rumors about JD Martinez. The way Boston's playing right now, with them being one of the hotter teams in baseball at 42-32, and they are 8-2 in their last 10. They're still 12 games back, but they're very much in the wild card race right now in the American League. The Red Sox probably won't sell off much of their talent. That's the route I would probably most assume they would go. With the month of April that they had, they started off so slow. Very slow. They started off looking like a team that, there was a point there where they had a worse record than the Orioles. Now, the Orioles are no cakewalk this year. They're 35-40. They're not that bad this year. Not as bad as they were in past years. But, Red Sox still, being underneath the Orioles, last place in division is not a good look. At that point, a lot of Met fans thought they can go after JD Martinez or somebody like that when it looked like the Red Sox might be selling at the deadline. And that's why we all kind of got to look at it as, look, seasons, championships are not won and lost in April. A lot of people started writing the Red Sox off, myself included, because they were playing so bad, and Trevor Story was terrible, and they were just bad all around, pitching, hitting, bullpen, terrible. They were awful, and they turned things around, and now they're 10 games above 500, and right in the heart of things in the wild card race. So you'd probably erase that name off the board, but that was one of the big ones earlier in the year for the Mets. I think a lot of people agree too, especially the way things ended on Sunday with the walk-off homer against Ottavino. Mets need another bullpen arm. Outside of Edwin Diaz, things get a little kind of iffy. Ottavino, Trevor May he's all right, but you have Seth Lugo is in. It's in. Joely Rodriguez has not been good this year. Drew Smith, their bullpen's interesting. They have Edwin Diaz, and it's kind of like, after him, it's very, very kind of cloudy. It's not much, there's some good performances in there. Jason Shreve, or Jason Shreve, however you pronounce his name. There are some guys in there, but it's not to the point where it's a bullpen that you really, really love or in love with. And a lot of the ways the Mets sometimes tend to lose games so far this season has been a little bit because of the bullpen. So for the New York Mets, they also look like they might need another bat. And they are in that spot right now where they very well might need another bat. Now, Mets last season, I will tell you when I'm right, I will tell you when I'm wrong. The Mets last year acquired James McCann. And I was a big fan of the move. I thought it was an excellent move for the Mets. His last 2 seasons in Chicago, he batted .273, then .289, had on base percentage of way over 300, and I really liked James McCann a lot. I really did. I thought it was a very good move. There's times where I'm right, and I will say I'm right, and there's times where I'm wrong, and I'll tell you wrong. I've been really, really wrong about this for James McCann. Because then when he was brought in with the Mets, I looked at a guy that went to Chicago, kind of got rejuvenated a little bit, because he was with Detroit for the first 5 years of his career. Went to Chicago, kind of got rejuvenated a little bit, and was starting to hit the ball. And now you look at him with the Mets, and he's back down to not really staying healthy. He's only played 23 games this year. He's batting .188. He's not hitting for power, which he never really has hit for power, although he did have a career best 18 home runs in 2019 with Chicago. So there was a lot of promise with this deal, but it just has not gone well. Last season he batted .232 and had a .294 on base percentage, slugging a .349, OPS is .643. This year it's even worse. .188, .250, .266 is his slash line, and his OPS even lower at .516. It's really, really bad. Strikeout numbers are up. 115 strikeouts last season. That's the third most he's ever had in a season. He just has not been the guy that the Mets expected, the guy that the Mets thought they were getting, and definitely what I thought the Mets were getting. I thought the Mets were getting a guy that was kind of rejuvenated, a much better hitter. Whatever he did in Chicago was the best James McCann we saw. And now it's just kind of like back to the old James McCann. Can't stay healthy. Even when he's out there, he hasn't done much. There's a guy at the catcher. Tomas Nido, too. He's a guy that's played 45 games this season, and he has stepped up, and he has had some big hits and has had some big moments. A guy, too, batting .221, not your big-time catcher. So it's clear the Mets need another big bat. They could use another bullpen guy. Specifically, that big bat could very well be a catcher, which they need. And I know Mazeka, another guy they had, batting 167. So as a whole, you got 188, you got 167, and you got 221. Those are your three Met catchers that have played catcher this season for the Mets. Those are their batting averages. That is really, really poor. So, Mets need a catcher. I think that's clear. And they need another big bat. Instead of the Mets going out and getting that big bat and signing a big bat, or trading for, I should say, a big-time bat, giving up assets, Mets have a big bat in their minor league system that is very well a good fit for them, even though he's only 20 years old and he's only in Double-A. But that is Francisco Alvarez. And one of the Mets' top prospects, 20 years old, playing right now with the Birmingham Rumble Ponies. He is tearing it up this season. In 236 at-bats, he's batting .280 with 17 home runs, 45 RBIs, and an OPS of .929. To give you a little bit more of his advanced stats, he played in 62 games this season, 40 runs, 66 hits, 16 doubles, 17 homers, 45 RBIs, 31 walks. Really works a lot of walks. He has 67 strikeouts, which, he's going to strike out a little bit, but that's also a young player. That's going to be a part of it. But this season, his slash line is .280, .365, .564, and an OPS of .929. His career, .283, .384, .547, .931 OPS. That is what this guy can do. Tearing it up. And he might have just got the okay from the Mets ace, Max Scherzer. So Scherzer was down there for a rehab start. And he was throwing to Francisco Alvarez, obviously in the Double-A. And now all of a sudden, you got Scherzer kind of saying, like, look, now you got Scherzer basically saying, I liked working with him. He's a very good catcher. He's got a lot of talent, great bat. This could just be a perfect fit for the New York Mets, and they might not even have to trade for anybody. They might not have to give up an asset for somebody. They might have their guy in their farm system ready to rock and roll. Now, I'm not saying, and I think a lot of Met fans would agree where I'm going with this, I'm not saying go out, sign him, or bring him up, call him up. Because, look, it is a big jump, and I think that's why I don't foresee this happening, but I think it would be smart for the New York Mets to do this, to bring in Francisco Alvarez. But one of the things that I think a lot of people would agree with is this is a guy who, when he comes up, does he have to catch every day? Does he have to catch? Not necessarily. But if you bring him up as a bat and maybe DH, a guy with great power from the right side, if you bring a guy up like that, even just to play him at DH a couple games, could be a huge factor for the New York Mets. It also gives you that kind of young guy, high energy type player, give you a little bit of an energy bolt into your team. Not saying the Mets don't have that, but sometimes a young guy can kind of, bring that energy to a locker room, bring that energy to a team. The way he plays the game, he's so much fun to watch. One of the top prospects in all of baseball. And I get the point, too, where it's like Mets want to be careful with him. You don't want to call him up from double. You don't very well see many double-A call-ups. Or you bring him up to AAA, get him some experience there, and then over by the trade deadline or even into July, August. This does not have to be right now. Like, you don't have to call him up today, get him to the Citi Field tonight to catch tonight's game. I'm not saying that, but if it's after the trade deadline or maybe prior to the trade deadline, or the Mets don't really like what they got at the trade deadline, or even whoever they got at the trade deadline, maybe they still aren't producing or the catcher's still a big issue for them, this could be a guy that they could bring up. And it could be a huge piece for them. And it doesn't have to be in an everyday role, but even a guy in just certain situations against certain pitchers to bring that power element to a lineup. And I get where the Mets want to be safe with him. You don't want to rush him up. But he's expected to play. He's expected to get called up next season. That's his expected call-up time. So you would be calling him up a couple months earlier. If you do it in July or August, you would be calling him up a couple months earlier. Because I would assume that next year he'd probably start the year in AAA, get called up maybe by June. So maybe 3-4 months of the baseball season earlier than you would have if you just let him go and get called up next season. But this is a very good option for the New York Mets. And a guy who is doing everything that he's needed to do at the minor league level to continue to show that he is going to be a key piece for the New York Mets. So I hear a lot of Met fans. I don't hate the idea. I think it's a great idea to bring him up. And I think he's a guy that when Max Scherzer talks like that about a player, about a minor league catcher in a rehab start, where you would assume Max Scherzer to even take notice of that. Because Max Scherzer, when he's out there, there's a lot of times when guys are out there, like Somerset Patriots players didn't go out of their way to compliment Gary Sanchez. I shouldn't say that. Players haven't, that's kind of the opposite. But if you will, even catchers going in rehab starment don't go out of their way all the time to compliment the way pitchers do. Other players, don't go out of the way to compliment the way catchers catch for them. To get Max Scherzer, who has been at a high level for such a long time, has pitched for some of the better catchers in baseball, for a guy that has seen a lot in the game, to just on a random, weekday night, to pitch in a rehab start, to actually go out of his way and say something about Francisco Alvarez and get a star to talk to you like that, that's got to be pretty gosh darn promising for the Mets. And that's where you wonder if the Mets kind of go down that road of possibly maybe bringing him up in a limited role, but a guy that can bring you some power from the plate. And especially a catcher position that needs a little bit of juice because it's been really poor this year. So, just an idea, but I like it. I think it's something that the Mets definitely are, could be in a good spot if they do this. So, anyway, let's get to New York sports update and finish things off here. Today you got a lot of games on. Guardians, Twins, you got a doubleheader, so that's at 1:10 Eastern. You got that game. Phillies, Braves, Nationals, Pirates, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Braves, Brewers, Twins, Guardians again, Marlins, Cardinals, Reds, Cubs, Royals, Rangers, Dodgers, Rockies, White Sox, Angels, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants, Tigers, Orioles, Mariners. Mets, Astros today. Mets come into today's game 47-27. Astros come into today's game 45-27. Astros got Luis Garcia on the mound. He's 5-5 with a 3.68 ERA, and the Mets got Carlos Carrasco on the mound. He's 8-3 with a 4.42 ERA, over under set at 8. That's 7:10 Eastern, TBS. I think you could also find it at SNY. Yankees, A's tonight. Again, game 2 of a 3-game set. Yankees come into tonight's game 54-20. A's come into tonight's game 25-50. Tonight's game goes on 7 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Yes, Oakland has got Frankie Montes on the mound. He's 3-7 with a 3.21 ERA. And according to this, the Yankees have J.P. Sears on the mound. I know that the Yankees maybe wanted to rest some of their starters, but I'm not sure if they're going to go that route here. But looks like J.P. Sears is slotted into start. We'll see. He's 2-0. Has not allowed a run in that one start that he pitched this season. Over-under set at 8. So Yankees looking for the series win, which would set up tomorrow, which is a day game. That would set up tomorrow for a series sweep. Alrighty, so let's see here. Alright, fantasy baseball. I'm currently losing in my main league 44-26. I've got some pitching going today, though. I got Carlos Rodon and Tariq Skubal. You know what I hate? Double headers for... I also made a roster move. I activated Yohan Moncada and I put Bryce Harper on the IL. And as for my other league, I am winning 62-32. And I got Carlos Rodon in that league pitching. One thing I don't like, and this is what's hard about fantasy baseball, is when there's a doubleheader and you don't know what to do. Because Carlos Correa is starting, Luis Arraez is starting, who's been great for me this season. But I don't know what to do because it's just an interesting spot I'm in. Because Gio Urshela is not starting. And I've done this. Usually if you don't start game 1, you're going to start game 2. But it's just like, I just don't like it. Because you can't switch your lineup either. So, and that's the issue. I think that's one thing fantasy baseball should allow you to do. If there's a doubleheader and, you have a catcher, you know that catcher's not going to play game 2. I wish you could, after the first game, edit your lineup so that you could take that catcher out. Because you know he's not going to play. A catcher's not going to catch 18 innings of baseball in one day. Some catchers might, if you're Salvador Perez, who plays basically every game, or if Cal Ripken was a catcher. But you know what I'm saying. There would be... I wish you could do that, but it's not the case. So, anyway, that's what I got for fantasy baseball. Looking for my 11th win in my main league, which would be great. So, anyway, that will do it for today's podcast. Another good podcast in the books, and as always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.